Hey guys, Jim here. Time for a little sneak peek video. Now, I had recently done a sneak peek video on another Jason Brous. He sent me a couple of these together, and the previous one was on the T4 prototype that was in pre-order stage, and I do believe all of those have sold out now. You can always try and see if he's got them. If you haven't seen the video yet, I'll probably bring it into this video for a comparison, and you get a quick glimpse at it. But right now we're going to focus on the most budget-oriented knife, folding knife, to have come out of Jason Brous's workshop to date. And this is called the Bionic. This is actually a sleek, slick, really lightweight little mini EDC. Now, I say mini because, I don't really carry knives of this size. It's not something that generally appeals to me. But I do like the design, I like the way that it feels, and I like, his traditional smoothness that comes out of his ball-bearing pivot system. But it definitely is, for my hands, a mini EDC. A lot of you guys like carrying smaller knives. This blade is just a touch over 3 inches. I mean, barely over 3 inches. And again, it measures, from this end here to the tip right at 3 inches. If you want to go back here to the pivot, it's just under 3¼ inches. So it depends on where you're going to measure it from. But overall, it's just a touch under 7 inches open. It's really small. It is extraordinarily lightweight. It's very, very slim. And he's done a lot of things here that are different than his traditional manufacturing or assembly methods. What you've got here first and foremost is an all aluminum handle. And instead of having a back spacer, which some of his knives do, actually most of his knives have back spacers, and he's getting more into standoffs lately. This is going to have standoffs, but you'll notice inside of this aluminum that he's using steel support structure. So it's going to have a good degree of strength, I would think. I mean, again, this isn't really going to be, a real hard use knife just because of the size of it. But everything seems to be reinforced with steel. If you look inside of the scales here, you're basically looking at aluminum scales over what seems to be a steel infrastructure. And then obviously the steel liner lock coming up, and there is the engagement with the blade. It's actually got really nice lockup. This is something that Jason's been working very, very hard on over the past year or so since the original Silent Soldier folders came out, and there were some lockup issues for a lot of people. Now, Jason, as far as I know, took care of all those. Even mine had an issue, was walking over a little bit too far. He tweaked it. Everything's been fine. So here is the lockup, nice and early, if you ask me. Seems to be nice and solid. I haven't had any blade play in any direction. I've been playing with this for just about 2 weeks now, I want to say. And here's some of the things that make this special. Before we get off too much into the design of the knife, this is a knife that he plans on selling at full retail for $160. Now, for Brous, who's already, in my opinion, a very affordable knife maker, this sets a new bar. This sets a new achievement for affordable everyday carry knives. So now you've got a knife that is in the range of a good Kershaw, a good Spyderco, a lower to mid-range Benchmade. Now you're getting into something that, Jason is still involved with the profiling of the blades, the sharpening of the blades. You are getting more of a mid-tech in its theory. Because think about this. Let's say you buy, let's just say you buy a Spyderco. You have no idea who ground your blades. That guy could have been grinding 500 blades that day on an industrial grinder that runs really, 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 really fast. Has the ability to burn through the heat treat, as we know. We've seen, with certain companies working with LMAX and stuff and having issues with their edges, whereas custom makers weren't. And that's a lot of the reason for it. It's the way they're heat treating and the way they're burning up the blades, burning through the heat treat, running them at really, really, really high rates when they're grinding them. and just grinding blade after blade after blade. So, here we're dealing with Jason, who is a much smaller operation than, say, a Spyderco or a Kai or something like that. So it's a lot more controlled. Sure, it takes longer to get the production run out there, and it really is a production knife. But, once it's all said and done, it's fine, because there wasn't a huge lead time on this. He didn't announce this a year ago or anything. He basically just made this public maybe a month or so ago, and then here I am with the prototype about a month or so before he's going to release them to the public. So it's not like you're being burdened with seeing the pictures and wanting to get your hands on it and then having to wait 8 months for it to come out. So it's not really a situation like that. He does plan on releasing these somewhere around December, so during the holidays. He's going to try to have them ready for early December is what he told me. We'll see how that pans out. So it's $159 for these, and he's going to do an all blackout version that'll be $189. So a $30 difference to get you into a complete all blacked out edition. The colors he's going to be offering in the regular ones he's going to do, let's see, red, blue, which is what I have in my hands, green, pink, and then the all black. And he also is going to offer an orange and a silver as well. So if you want a black handle, you're going to have to get a black blade. And I asked him if he would be taking custom orders for people that may want, let's say you wanted a purple one. He's not anticipating doing that in the beginning. It may be an option down the road once the entire production is done, and maybe he's going into a secondary production. That could be a possibility. But he says for right now, he's only going to offer the colors that he's already working on. I actually think orange would be pretty badass for this. I like the blue a lot. It's a nice, rich, royal blue. It's got a lot of color saturation to it. And it's really easy to anodize aluminum. You're going to get a nice consistent color. You're going to get nice vibrant colors out of aluminum. So there's certainly going to be a color to appeal to everybody. I already plan on buying a couple of the pink ones, one for my wife and one for a friend of mine. Just for the shit of it. I mean, it's $160. Where are you going to get a decent knife with, somewhat custom touches to it? For $160, I think it's a nice deal. So the blade, like I said, is just a teeny touch over 3 inches. It's in D2 steel. Really, really nice hollow ground blade. He does a great job on his grinds. And, for being a production knife, it's got a nice satin finish to it. Now, it's obviously not a hand-rubbed satin, but it's a really, really nice finish for this price range. I like this very prominent groove that's running through either side of the blade. Gives it a nice aggressive look. Speaking of aggressive, the jimping, he's actually made some really practical jimping here. Not the kind, and I'll reference my reloader for this. I've mentioned this in the past, that the reloader, the way this was done, it's very sharp. It's kind of rough on you, especially when you're going to flip the knife and your finger goes down into it. You kind of have that little bit of roughness to it. But it's not really the case here. It's a little bit finer, actually quite a bit finer. I don't want to say a little bit, it's a lot finer. And you don't really feel it that much when your fingers bringing the flipper tab down, but it really is grippy. It grips onto your fingers very, very nicely. So it's going to be a pretty comfortable knife. He's got a nice relief here, nice finger choil here. The shape of the flipper tab is accentuating the shape of this choil there, so it's almost like a hook that kind of holds your finger in place. It's a comfortable fit all the way around. Again, I prefer a knife that's bigger, that'll kind of fill up my whole hand. But for those of you with smaller hands or just are used to or prefer smaller knives, you're not going to have an issue with that. Ergonomics are nice. You've got a nice relief here for your thumb. It comes back, sweeps around for the palm of your hand. It's just a nicely contoured knife. It's comfortable in the hands. I've carried it only once. I didn't have any issues carrying it in the pocket, obviously being very small and being very slim. It was a nice, comfortable, lightweight carry. I wore it with carried it, I should say, with a pair of shorts, lightweight shorts. I didn't really feel like it was a burden in my pants. How often do you get a chance to say that? It was not a burden in my pants. And the design is kind of cool. It's called Bionic because what he's doing here is kind of a biomechanical look. He basically just sat down with a piece of paper and drew out the design and kind of, felt it through and went, hey, you know what, that would look pretty damn cool on the handle of a knife. And that's how he came up with the idea to machine this design. So it was a hand sketch that he just kind of transferred over to the computer, and this is the result. I dig it. It's kind of futuristic. It's almost reptilian when you look at like these center scales, the way they're going down. So it's like a futuristic robotic reptile of some sort. So yeah, kind of neat. As far as flipping goes, it's a little tough for me because, on a knife this small, where I tend to put it, the blade wants to hit the fatty part of my hand. But if I hold it right, it does whip out. It's a nice, snappy flipper. As a matter of fact, hold on one quick second. I wasn't as prepared for this as I should have been. Hold on one second. The only knife I really have in this size to compare it with, and again, it's a completely different price range, but put it up next to my Brad Southern Custom, my Tarsus, and you see the Tarsus is only a little bit bigger. We'll put them butt to butt. You guys know the drill. So yeah, it's a little bit smaller than the Tarsus, but I had the same thing happen with the Tarsus where my hand kind of wanted to cover the blade, and I've gotten used to holding it. Now you see the flipping action here. And this is a tremendously more expensive custom. And this is only a touch slower. Also, this isn't broken in. So what you've got here is a pretty nice performer when you think about it. Again, $160. That's what you have to keep in the forefront of your mind, that it's $160. Now, there it is up against the T4 prototype from Jason. There is a tremendous size difference there. So maybe you bought a T4. It's going to be arriving really, really soon. I know one or two guys that are expecting theirs this week. And you go, man, I love this. This is a really awesome, hard use, fast flipping son of a bitch. But there are days I can't carry such a thick, chunky, and somewhat heavy knife. That's when you go for this. This was kind of Jason's attempt to go into a gentleman's folder. Now again, it's not a true gentleman's folder. Obviously it has a pocket clip. It's not going to be sitting down in your pocket or in a leather sheath. It's definitely more aggressively designed than a gentleman's folder, but this was kind of his idea of something that could be small. It just disappears into my hand. Compact, lightweight, slim, easy to carry, with a really cool design, nice sharp edge on it. It's a useful utilitarian kind of knife. Great shape to the blade. There's just ever so slight amount of belly, so you will be able to get, there's a little bit of rocking action there. You will be able to get a teeny tiny little bit of belly out of that for some, everyday cutting tasks. Again, I'm not an expert, and I certainly don't carry a lot of smaller knives, so this is a little bit outside of my bubble. But I see a lot of people being intrigued by smaller knives lately, hopping on that bandwagon. And listen, a knife like this, let's say this were built of titanium by any decent maker with the same D2 steel. And yeah, it's getting kind of old having to watch comments, people going, well, I'd buy it if it weren't for the D2 steel. D2 steel. Hey, you know what? There are some great knife makers making really expensive knives in D2, and ain't a damn soul that knows what they're talking about complaining. You want to bitch about D2? Go over to Jeremy Horton and go, how the hell can you charge over $1,000 for a knife in D2? And, let him explain it to you. What I'm talking about here is a $160 knife. Use a little bit of Aegis EDC solution. You don't have to worry about any corrosion issues. Take care of your shit. It'll take care of you. I look at it as a great budget carry knife. Maybe even just a backup. Maybe you're carrying something big like this every day like I do. And you just want to have a nice, small, discreet backup in your other pocket. Cool. There's a lot of reasons to want a smaller knife. A lot of people, it's just going to simply be about the laws in their state. Maybe they can't carry a larger blade like this. They're forced into carrying smaller knives. And sometimes when you're restricted by that blade size and you're restricted by price, hey, you just can't drop $200, $300, $400, $500 on a knife. That's certainly understandable. And you're looking in that $100 to $175 price range. I think this gives you a nice option to the others that are out there. I mean, this really is going to be in the same price range as a Paramilitary 2. It's going to be in the same price range as a lot of the better quality Kershaws. It's going to be up to you to decide which is going to be better for you. I don't think there's going to be a significant performance difference between them. Yes, the action on this is snappy. Yes, the action on this is very, very smooth because of Jason's bearing system that he uses. But there's not a huge performance difference in this price range. What he's doing is offering something that you have a few different choices in the colors. I like the new clip, by the way. I didn't want to go off of my topic there, but I really like the new clip. Very comfortable. Nothing fancy. Again, $160 knife. It's not going to be anything crazy. I think he's giving you good options. You can have a good-looking knife that has a unique design to it. It's got a great blade shape for those of you that have been, banging your heads against the wall trying to get a 777 from Zero Tolerance. This is somewhat of a similar profile. It's not quite as aggressive at the tip, but it's a somewhat similar profile, the same usability, and without being ridiculously expensive. The jimping is done nicely. The whole knife feels comfortable in the hand, and it just works well for its intended purpose. If there was one thing, actually two things that I would say that I would change about it, would be, let's see if we can get it to focus for one, is this is a little bit, because it gets really slim here on the aluminum, that can be a little sharp. Now he did counter this by making the liner lock stick out further than the actual scale over here. So it's not like my RJ Martin where every single time I disengage it, my thumb gets pinched between the lock and the scale. So it's not that bad, but you may notice it, you may not. So that's one thing that, may not be the 100% most amazing thing about the knife. And the initial onset of the jimping right here, that's a little teeny tiny bit sharp. Is it anything to really bitch and complain about? No, but it is something that you're going to notice the first few times you go to open the knife. So I want you to be completely aware of what you're getting. I don't want you to go, well, Jim didn't tell us about this because Jason's his buddy. And, no, it has nothing to do with that. I'm always going to be honest with everything. So yeah, the very first, can you make jimping singular and call it a jimp? I don't know. But that very first ridge right there, that very first jimp, is just a wee little bit sharp. So just do keep that in mind. So like I said, I've only had this for about 2 weeks. I flipped it, probably 100 times. Haven't lubricated it, haven't done anything. It's not broken in yet, and it's still a nice, snappy, quick release on the flipper, especially for its size. Let's see if we could do just a straight pullback. Yeah. There's just enough detent there to let me do that. Now, if I push button it, which is really something that you do with a lot of Jason's knives, the reloader tends to favor push button. You can pull back on it, but it's not a really strong detent, so it definitely prefers the push down. The T4 does everything. You can rock back on it, or you can push button it. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, there's a couple of Brouses for comparison. As you see, it's got an aggressive profile like Jason is used to doing, but it's not as aggressive. It's not as crazy. Now again, these two are collaborations designed by somebody else. That may not be entirely fair. But you look at the Silent Soldier flipper, it's certainly got an aggressive kind of look to it. You look at the Division, even though it's sleeker and more futuristic, still got kind of an aggressive look to it. So Jason is really carving out his own niche. He's doing some really cool stuff. And I like the fact that even though he was already an affordable knife maker, he's looking at lesser expensive ways to offer his products out to the masses. So I think a lot of people are now going to be able to get their hands on a real Jason Brous that carries his name. He's not coming up with a mid-tech company name or logo or anything like that. So you're getting a real Jason Brous. It may be a production knife, but you're getting a real Brous at $160, or $30 more if you go with the blackout. And you got something I think you can be proud to carry. It's different, it's unique. Everything he does is still, even in a production knife, is still going to be somewhat limited. So there aren't going to be 20,000 of these out there, you know, like a Spyderco or like a Kershaw or like a Cold Steel. So there's still a degree of exclusivity to it. And he'll probably do short spurts of production runs. Maybe he'll only make the blue for 2013. Maybe he'll only make a purple for 2014. You never know. So you got a little bit of exclusivity. You've got a super affordable price, small, lightweight, compact, comfortable knife to carry. If you like smaller knives, I think this is probably going to be a nice option for you. All right, guys, I'm going to hop off out of here. I've got a whole bunch of videos to catch up on, so I will try to do so as quickly as I can, and I will see you soon.